Part 2 of Annie Proulx's The Bunchgrass, Edge of the World, from where we left off. Had my way, every hand be a woman. A woman got a nice disposition with animals. He intended the remark to sting. "Oh, Daddy," said Tyler in a comic falsetto. He was the horseman of the family, had slept out in the dilapidated bunkhouse since he was 13, Juanita's edict. My brothers slept in the bunkhouse. There was in that flat remark all of Juanita's childhood, sequestered, alert, surrounded by menace. This only son, Tyler, was a huge, kit-handed youth of 19, stout enough to frighten any father except Aladdin. The kid stamped around in dirty jeans and a brown hat. He was slack-mouthed, sported a young man's cat fur mustache, cheeks marred by strings of pimples. He was only 1% right about anything, alternated between despondency and quick fury. On Aladdin's birthday, Tyler presented him with 2 coyote ears, the results of weeks of cunning stalk. Aladdin unwrapped them, laid them on the tablecloth, and said, "Ah, what am I supposed to do with 2 coyote ears?" "By God," screamed Tyler, "set one of them on your dick and say it won a fur hat in the church raffle. You're all against me." He swept the ears to the floor and walked out. "He will be back," said Juanita. "He will be back with dirty clothes and his pockets turned inside out. I know, boys." "I was a wandering boy," Old Red mumbled. "He won't be back. Takes after me. I cowboyed. I killed hogs. I made it through. Worked like a man since I was 14. 96 years young. Never knowed my father. Carry you all to hell and spit on you." His finger dragged across the tablecloth, the long-ago self making a way. The old man showed a terrible smile, fumbled with his can of snooze. Aladdin, face like a shield, curly hair springing, tipped his head toward the tablecloth, mumbled, "Oh, bless this food." Heavy beef slices encircled by a chain of parsnips and boiled potatoes slumped on the platter. He had discovered 2 long-dead cows that afternoon, one bogged, the other without a mark of cause. He lifted a small potato and transferred it to his father's plate. Without looking at him, ignored the rattling of the old man's fork, though Juanita, pouring coffee into heavy cups, frowned and said, "Watch it, John Wayne." A pastel envelope lay between her knife and a flat cake with sugar icing, so thin it appeared blue. "Something from Shan. She coming back?" Aladdin crushed his potatoes, flooded them with skim milk. Game and fish would pay for stock killed by grizzlies or lions. He had not seen lion sign for a decade, and grizzly, never. "Didn't open it yet," she said, tearing the end. There was a short and vague letter that she read aloud, and clipped to it an astonishing photograph. It showed this daughter in a black bikini, greased muscles, starkly outlined, exhibiting bulging biceps and calves, spiky crew-cut hair whitened with bleach, her rolling apricot-sized eyes frozen wide open. In the letter she had written, "Got into bodybuilding. A lot of girls here do it." "Whatever she has done to her hair," said Juanita. "Somebody talked her into it. I know Shan, and that would not be her idea." When Shan left, she had been an ordinary young woman with thin arms, blondish hair. Her glancing, unlevel eyes ricked from face to face. When she spoke When she spoke, her hands revolved, the fingers flung out. The yearbook had named her most animated. Bodybuilding. Aladdin's tone was neutral. He had the rancher's expectation of disaster. Never believed in happy endings. He was satisfied that she was alive, not building bombs nor winking at drive-by Johns. Adeline stared at her coffee. Floating on the surface was a spread-wing moth the shape of a tiny arrowhead. It pointed at her sister's empty chair. Aladdin wore boots and a big hat, but rarely mounted a horse. He missed the Piper Cub, which seemed to him like a horse. Someone had stolen it 2 years earlier, had unbolted the wings, and hauled it away on a flatbed while he slept. He suspected Mormons. Now he was welded to the driver's seat of his truck, tearing over the dusty roll of land. And sometimes, drugged and fallen, he spent the night out in a draw, cramped on the front seat. The windshield glass, discolored by high-altitude light, threw down a violet radiance. When he made the headache rack from poles, he had made the headache rack from poles cut on the ranch. He kept a bottle of whiskey and a rope behind the seat. In the open glove compartment carried kindling, wrenches, bolts and nuts, several hundred loose fence staples, and a handleless hammerhead. Juanita tossed an old quilt in the cab and told him to wind up the windows when it rained. "I know you," she said. "You will let the weather get you." Every 10 days or so, Adeline reared up and said she wanted to go to town and look for a job. Aladdin wouldn't take her. Her weight, he said, ruined the springs on the passenger side. Anyway, there were no jobs. She knew that. She had better stay on the ranch where she didn't know how good she had it. "I don't know why you'd want to leave this ranch." She said he should let her drive in alone. "I will tell you when I am ready for advice." He said, "I'm steering my own truck for now. You want to drive a truck? Then buy one. I'm about $1 million short." It was all hopeless. "What do you want me to do? Rob a bank for you?" he said. "Anyway, you're coming to the bull sale. I'll give you a pointer you don't want to forget. Scrotal circumference is damn important." What was there for Adeline when the work slacked off? Stare at indigo slants of hail 40 miles east, regard the tumbled clouds like mechanics' rags, count out, he loves me not, in nervous lightning, crooked as branchwood through all quarters of the sky. That summer the horses were always wet. It rained uncommonly. The southwest monsoon sweeping in. The shining horses stood out on the prairie, withers streaming, manes dripping, and one would suddenly start off a fan of droplets coming off its shoulders like a cape. Adeline and Aladdin wore slickers from morning coffee to good-night yawn. Juanita watched the television weather while she ironed shirts and sheets. Old Red called it drip and dribble, stayed in his room chewing tobacco, reading Zane Grey in large print editions, his curved fingernails creasing the page under every line. On the 4th of July, they sat together on the porch, watching a distant storm, pretending the thick, ruddy legs of lightning and thunder were fireworks. Adeline had seen most of what there was to see around her, with nothing new in sight. Brilliant events burst open, not in the future, but in the imagination. The room she had shared with Shan was a room within a room. In the unshaded moonlight, her eyes shone oily white. The calfskin rug on the floor seemed to move, to hunch and crawl a fraction of an inch at a time. The dark frame of the mirror sank into the wall, a rectangular trench. From her bed she saw the moon-bleached grain elevator, and behind it, immeasurable range flecked with cows like small black seeds. She was no one but Adeline in that peppery, disturbing light that made her want everything there was to want, the raw loneliness, the silences of the day. The longing flesh led her to press her mouth to the crook of her own hot elbow. She pinched and pummeled her fat flanks, rolled on the bed, twisted, went to the window a dozen times, heel striking the floor, until Old Red in his pantry below called out, "What is it? You got a sailor up there?" Her only chance seemed the semi-literate, off-again, on-again hired man, Hal Bloom. Tall legs like chopsticks, t-shirt emblazoned. Aggressive by nature, cowboy by choice. He worked for Aladdin in short bursts, between rodeo roping. Could not often be pried off his horse, for he cherished a version of himself as a 1870s cowboy, just in from a Oregon cattle drive. Adeline had gone with him down into the willows a dozen times, to the damp soil and nests of stinging nettles, where he pulled a pale condom over his small, hard penis and crawled silently onto her. His warm neck smelled of soap and horse. But then, when Adeline began working on the ranch for real money, Aladdin told Hal Bloom to go spin his rope. "Yeah, well, it's too shit-fire long a haul out here anyways." Bloom was gone. That was that. Adeline was dissolving. It was too far to anything. Someone had to come for her. There was not even the solace of television, for Old Red dominated the controls, always choosing westerns, calling out to the film horses in his broken voice, "Buck him off, kick his brains out." Adeline went up to her room, listened to cell phone conversations on the scanner. "The balance on account number 73579 is minus now 204. "Yes, I can see that, maybe. Are you drinking beer already?" "Ha ha, yes. I guess maybe you didn't notice. It wasn't smash flat like that. I took it out of the bag and it was, you gonna carve it? Not that one. It's nasty. Hey, is it raining there yet?" "Is it raining yet?" she repeated. It was raining everywhere, and people were alive in it, except in the red wall country. Adeline studied Shan's photograph, said to her mother, "If it kills me, I'm going to walk it off." "Haven't I heard that before?" said Juanita. "I know you." Adeline marched around outside the house for a few days, then widened the loop to take in the corrals, the tool shed, the root cellar, circumambulated the defunct gravel quarry, where Aladdin dragged worn-out equipment, a sample of tractors, one a 1928 blue Rumley oil pull tractor on steel, with a chokecherry tree growing through the frame. Beside it, Old Red's second-hand 1935 AC with the four-cylinder overhead valve engine, paint sun-scalded white. Half buried at the foot of a caving bank lay the remains of a stripped Fordson Major, grill and radiator shrouds smashed in, and next to a ruined stock tank stood the treacherous John Deere 4030. She was walking through the rain-slick wrecks when a voice spoke, barely audible. "Sweetheart, lady girl." The low sun poured slanting light under the edge of a cloud. Mass so dark it seemed charred, the prairie, the tractors. Her hand beyond the wrist hem of the yellow slicker, all gilded with saffron brilliance. Colors of otherworld intensity blazed in the washed air. The distant red wall, a bed of coals. "Sweet," the voice breathed. She was alone. There were no alien spacecraft in the sky. She stood quite still. She had eaten from a plate full of misery since childhood, suffered unfeeling parents, the hard circumstances of the place. Looniness was possible. It could happen to anyone. Her mother's brother, Mapston Hipsag, had contracted a case of lumpy jaw from the stock, and the disease took him by stages from depressive rancher to sniggering maniac. The light gilded down to a dying hue, and the wrecked machines sank into their own coffee-brown shadows. She heard nothing but mosquito whine, small wind that comes with approaching darkness. That night, listening to the ramble of talk on the scanner, she wondered if hunger had prompted an invisible voice. Went to the kitchen and ate all of the leftover pork roast. "I'm worried about you. I hope nobody tries to kill you or something. Don't miss me too much. Nothing been hit. It just rained like a bastard up here. Rained like shit here too. No point staying here." Nothing happened for weeks, common enough in that part of the state. On a roaring noon, she went again to the gravel pit. "Hello, sweetheart. Come here. Come here." It was the 4030, Aladdin's old green tractor, burly but with forward raking lines that falsely indicated an eagerness to run. The machine had killed a ranch hand years earlier in a rollover accident at the weed-filled irrigation ditch. Maurice Ramblewood, or what? Rambletree, Bramblefood, Rumbleseat, Tumbleflood. She was a kid, but he had always flashed her a smile and asked her what was cooking, and on the fatal day had tossed her a candy bar, pliable and warm, from his shirt pocket. Said she could borrow his sunglasses that turned the world orange. In the late afternoon, he was dead in the bristle grass. His ghost. "Maurice, is that you?" No, it ain't him. That boy's a cinder." "Who is talking?" 2 steps closer. She stretched out her hand to the side grill. Yellow jackets had built a nest in it and were creeping in and out of the grill's opening, palping the air suspiciously. She stared fixedly at the insects. "That is good," said the voice inside the tractor. "Get you a little stick and scratch where all that paint is blistered up." But she backed off. "I'm just scared to pieces," she said, looked at the sky, the rise and fall of crested prairie, the bunchgrass edge of the world that flared like burning threads. "Nah, now don't be. This old world is full of wonders, ain't it? Come on, get up in the cab. Plenty of bounce left. The seat's still good. Pretend you're driving right through Los Angeles." The voice was hoarse and plangent, just above an injured whisper, a movie gangster's voice. "No," she said. "I don't like this. I already got enough problems, not making it worse by getting in an old tractor cab that's ready to collapse." "Ah, you think you got problems? Look at me, sweetheart. Setting out here in the baking sun, blizzards and lizards. Not even a tarp over me. Brakes wrecked, battery gone, working parts seized up, no gas, surrounded by deadheads, covered with bird shit and rust. Here you are at last, won't even give me the time of day." It's 6:12, she said and walked off, fingertips pressing her elbows. This was a hallucination. The voice called after her. Sweetheart, lady girl, don't go. And we'll leave it there for now.